Can you believe it? Here, where the average annual income per person is over 30,000, but there are still hundreds of people sleeping on the cold concrete. No home, no clean water, not even a kind glance from someone passing by. When even the peacekeepers refused to enter, perhaps you know what the city has lost. Not just security, but it's the very soul of it. This isn't just a problem for San Francisco. New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and hundreds of American landmarks are also showing signs of cracking in every corner. And it seems no one dares to go in and fix it. In today's video, we'll delve into exploring the homelessness situation in the 10 largest cities in the United States. Even the police don't dare to intervene. There are names that were once very developed, which are also on this list now, and their story will surprise you. A small note that the content in the video is compiled by us from reputable sources and does not attack any individuals or organizations, with the desire to create a space for sharing and discussion. Let's get started. The journey from what was thought to be stable, Dallas, Texas. Can you believe it? In Dallas, right after the 24-hour Walmart opened, where thousands of families push shopping carts every week, it's a different world. Tents, empty noodle boxes, used medical waste, and people sleeping next to areas where only environmental sanitation workers dare to go. Dallas, the conservative heart of America, is facing a bitter truth. In just 1 year, the number of homeless people here has increased by a staggering 26%. Yes, over a quarter in exactly 12 months. Texas, strong, smart, safe, a state motto. Sounds powerful, doesn't it? But right under that slogan, there were people sleeping in their cars for 3 years straight. A former Marine. He once defended the southern border. Now he keeps himself safe from the intoxicated young people by sleeping with self-defense items in hand. Dallas once had a law prohibiting homeless encampments, but then the court ruled it violated the right to life, and the ban disappeared. The city has a budget, but social housing? It's still a distant dream. Meanwhile, investment funds were buying up houses and land in droves. House prices tripled in less than a decade. Real estate is increasingly out of reach for ordinary people. Dallas, once considered a model of southern development, is now like a concrete desert. Wide, bright, and clean, but there's nowhere for people to stop and rest. Is this still the city's sole responsibility? Or is it the result of a system that refuses to look at the poor unless they are in the way? Do you think Texas is doing enough to protect those who once protected its borders for them? If Dallas, with all its power, vast land, and large budget, is this helpless, what will happen to Philadelphia? Are you ready to listen to their story yet? Don't take your eyes off it. Philadelphia, the city of the Declaration of Independence, of the Liberty Bell, of the nation's founding history. But just a few miles from the city center is the area known as the land no one enters at night. Kensington is not a third world slum, but right in the heart of an American city. Here, you'll find something quietly spreading through every street, every awning, every corner. It's cheaper than bread, but the price to pay after using it is more expensive than anything else. Over the past 3 years, the number of homeless people dying from overdoses in Philadelphia has doubled. No unexpected events, no pandemic, just a silent act, but one that could make a life disappear. In fact, one police officer said this: "We don't go into Kensington anymore, not because we're afraid, but because we don't know what to do when we get there." The government has a program. There is a fund. There are also support centers. But how do you bring someone into a temporary shelter when the only thing they're looking for is a dose to help them forget? Freedom is something Philadelphia once let in. But now, what many people here have is the freedom to sink into darkness with no one to stop them and no one to know. What do you think Philadelphia needs to do to change, and whether it can escape its own spiral? Leave a comment below. If you've ever been to Philadelphia and seen that change, please share your story. But Philadelphia wasn't the final destination, because the next city was even more populous and colder, both literally and figuratively. Can you guess what that name is? Let's meet the city of Denver, Colorado. Denver is still called the Green City, with fresh air, beautiful mountains, and a healthy lifestyle. But few mention that hundreds of people are living outdoors when the temperature drops below 20 degrees Fahrenheit. In 2024 alone, the city of Denver recorded nearly 14,000 homeless individuals. This is probably the highest level since statistics began. Of these, over 1,300 are children. Notably, Denver was once a beacon of hope, one of the first places to aggressively implement the Housing First model. They built, cared for, and tried. But by 2025, the program's budget had decreased by nearly 40% due to escalating costs and an increasing influx of people. The temporary shelters have been overcrowded since November. Many places had to close early due to lack of manpower, lack of heating, and lack of everything humans need to survive a cold night. In Denver, there are people sleeping in the snow just steps away from a 4-star hotel. One side is heated, the other is shriveled, and the only barrier is a pane of glass and the account balance. Where are they from? From Texas, from Kansas, from California. They came because they thought Denver was kinder, and perhaps that's true, but kindness is also dwindling in the cold. At retirement age, can you imagine having to sleep in the snow with a pair of torn socks and an old tarp just to survive the night? What's in your imagination is the reality for many seniors in Denver right now. Please comment if you've experienced a difficult winter or know someone who needs shelter. But if you think snow and cold are the worst, the next city will send shivers down your spine, not because of the climate, but because of an unbelievable paradox. Come to Seattle, where technology touches the clouds, but people seem to keep their feet on the ground. Seattle, the tech capital of the Northwest, the birthplace of trillion-dollar companies, where AI can predict user behavior but is powerless against the sight of hundreds of people sleeping amidst the mist and the sound of car horns. Doesn't that sound absurd? But that's the reality. As of mid-2025, Seattle has over 14,000 homeless people, a staggering number if you remember that the city was once ranked among the top 3 most livable places in the United States. Just a few blocks from Amazon's headquarters are rows of tents called mini villages. Some even have temporary preschools where children learn to read amidst the sounds of truck horns and the smell of burning wood. A former contract programmer for a digital health startup. He earns $95,000 a year and has a studio apartment just a 10-minute walk from Pike Place Market. Then a round of layoffs. Your company lost money. At first, he thought he would find a job quickly. But month after month, the $200 rent payment kept coming, while job offer emails didn't. Now, he lives off public Wi-Fi and cheap coffee. He still codes, not to make money, but to keep his mind sharp and to remember that he once belonged to that world. He said, "I'm not an addict. I'm not useless. I just fell behind a step, and society didn't have a place for me to get back up a second time." Seattle once prided itself on being a pioneering city in humanizing technology. But when rents exceed $400 per month, and over 20% of tech industry personnel have been laid off since 2023, kindness also begins to shrink. And in the midst of a smart city, perhaps the most forgotten thing is the feeling of being human. In a city where machines are becoming increasingly intelligent, it seems humans are being left behind. Have you ever seen technology do everything except protect the very humans who created it? If you've ever lived in Seattle or worked in the tech industry, have you noticed this change? Please share. Seattle is not the final destination, because a city that was once a destination for millions of tourists is now the epicenter of the homelessness crisis. a place whose name has become a sad symbol: Phoenix. The temperature in Phoenix reaches 119 degrees Fahrenheit on some days. The road surface is hot enough to cook an egg, but that's not the scariest thing here. Colder than the desert wind is the gaze of society when it sees someone with nowhere left to go. Welcome to Zone X, Arizona's largest homeless encampment. It's only a 15-minute drive from City Hall, but almost no one goes in this direction. The security instability, yet with no one arrested or tried, has caused many people to feel uneasy. Notably, almost no police officers want to enter here at night anymore. Zone X is now like a city within a city, but without laws, without boundaries, and without hope. A part-time nurse. After the pandemic, shifts were cut, rent increased, and the old SUV became the new home for the whole family. She applied for shelter, but the waiting list is months long. Meanwhile, her daughter's skin began to blister from the heat of what people are calling the new normal in Phoenix. She doesn't need our pity. She just needs some shade before the sun gets any hotter. In the summer of 2024 alone, over 178 homeless individuals in Maricopa County experienced health issues due to rising temperatures. Most of them are elderly, living alone, without air conditioning, and without anyone to rely on. Phoenix is one of the fastest growing cities in the United States. But the more houses that are built, the fewer people can stay. The problem in Phoenix isn't a lack of sunshine, but a lack of shelter from indifference. When you go outside on a hot, sunny day, what's the first thing you look for? A glass of cold water? Some shade? Or is there a door open? Imagine if there were no doors left open. Have you ever lived through a summer without air conditioning? Have you ever had to choose between gasoline and drinking water? Leave a comment. Phoenix is where people fall silently. But the next city is where the poor live, right next to the cinematic glamour, and are erased from the frame every day. Join us in Atlanta, where contrast has become the norm. Atlanta, the film capital of the South. Where blockbusters are filmed, superheroes are created, and dreams become reality on the big screen. But stepping out from behind the lens, just a few minutes drive away, are completely different scenes. No script, no costumes, no director. Only real life and the people struggling in a role no one wants to take on. The homeless. From 2022 to 2025, the number of homeless encampments in Atlanta doubled. Even as the city simultaneously poured billions of dollars into infrastructure development, attracting major film studios. On one side are the lights, the film set, and the celebrities. On the other side, there's the coughing of the elderly, the crying of children, and the clinking sound of aluminum pots placed on a homemade charcoal stove. A woman who used to be a backstage worker at a major film studio. As the set dresser, making coffee for the director, and cleaning the set after long days of filming. She loves that job. But after the 2023 layoffs, Sandra lost her job. Then they lost their home. And then you lose the right to be in a place with air conditioning. Now, she cleans a restaurant at night and sleeps in her car at a temporary parking lot. She said, "I used to dust for superheroes. Now I'm dusting for myself." Atlanta builds more, higher, brighter. But according to the 2025 HUD report, over 1,900 children are living in housing instability, the highest number among southeastern cities. Atlanta is called the Hollywood of the South. But here, not everyone gets a role. And for many, the final scene came very early. Notably, while film studios are exempt from millions of dollars in taxes, the city's social housing programs have to cut operating funds by 15% due to overspending. If you've ever watched a post-apocalyptic movie, do you remember the scenes of deserted cities, people wandering aimlessly, and everyone just looking for shelter to sleep? And Atlanta is making that a reality without any tricks. No special effects. It's just something that happens slowly and quietly. If you ever believed what Atlanta promised about the Southern dream, about art, about opportunity, do you see that dream fading? Please share your feelings. And if Atlanta can build an entire simulated world, Chicago is losing its ability to keep real people. The next city, where the cold wind blows away the boundary between home and street. Chicago, the windy city, where the blues music, the labor movement, and the first skyscrapers once flourished. But now, the strongest wind blowing here is the wind that sweeps into the open-air sleep of thousands of people. And many of them used to have homes, jobs, and hopes. Chicago currently has over 6,000 homeless people living outdoors, not including thousands of invisible individuals who are couch surfing, sleeping in parking lots or stairwells. To clear the camps under the bridge, the authorities erected steel fences to prevent people from setting up tents. But just a few days later, the homeless dug another road to get in. It's not because they like being there, and because where else is there to go? A teacher who taught high school history on the South Side for nearly 30 years. A pension that's enough to live on until a health issue arises and all savings have to be spent on treatment. Insurance doesn't cover enough. Hospital fees are prolonged. He no longer has a home, nor does he have any relatives. From 2023 to the present, the underside of the Columbus Bridge is where he calls his night study. He said, "In the old days, I taught my students about human rights. Now, I just wish I had a windbreak." Although the city spends over $50 million annually on housing programs, most of this is focused on conditional resettlement rather than emergency relief. Meanwhile, according to the CDC, low temperatures in Chicago can negatively affect the health of many homeless people during the winter. In a city proud of preserving its classical architecture, jazz art, and Broadway theatre, it couldn't hold on to real, living people on the sidewalks. In a city that places a statue of a poet in front of the library, should a teacher be allowed to sleep next to a trash can? Who is wrong? Who is powerless? And who is seeing? Did you used to live in old Chicago? Please tell me, did the wind of old blow flags, while the wind of today blows away the sleep of the poor? Chicago is cold, but the lights are still bright. And in Los Angeles, where the American dream shines brightest, tents have become a permanent backdrop. Come with me to California, where dreams and reality are divided in two. Los Angeles, the city of dreams, of Oscars, camera lights, applause in a closed room, and smiles on the silver screen. But behind every brightly lit wall lies a reality darker than one could ever imagine. Just a few blocks from the Walk of Fame, where the names of stars are etched in stone, are people sleeping on the sidewalks, forgotten by everyone. Where every plastic shelter also needs to be guarded like a precious asset. Los Angeles currently has over 75,000 homeless people, the highest in the country. Some sources predict that by 2030, California could account for up to 30% of the nation's total homeless population. Skid Row itself, a name that needs no translation, has become an uncontrolled grey area. Police used to have to wear armour to clear the tents. So what? Tents sprouted up again just a week later. Because here, it's not a war, it's life. And everyone is trying to live in their own way. Notably, the city spends over $1.2 billion annually on programs to support the homeless, more than the GDP of a small country. But according to the latest report, only 38% of the homeless have access to stable, temporary housing. Why? Because of the speed at which people are being pushed onto the streets. It's still faster than bringing them back. Los Angeles can recreate the moon, recreate the Middle Ages, and even simulate the future. But a real roof for a real person still seems like too much of a luxury. Have you ever been to Los Angeles? Have you ever looked up at the names on the Walk of Fame? So, have you ever bent down to see someone's name erased from life? Do you think the American dream is still alive in California? And now, it's just a prop for a scene no one wants to air. Leave a comment below. And come with me to New York, where the subway is colder than any promise, where the light seems so bright that one can no longer see the darkness beneath. Fifth Avenue, the luxurious heart of America. Each square meter of land can be worth millions of dollars. But just a few steps away, deep underground, is a world without lights, without red carpets, without cameras. New York, the city that never sleeps. And sadly, many people here don't even have a proper place to sleep. As of mid-2025, nearly 80,000 people are living in homelessness in New York City, which is almost double the population of an average American town, in which over 4,000 people sleep underground every night, especially at train stations. A former office worker for a mid-sized financial company living in the Bronx, she commutes to work every morning on the A-line train. But after a pandemic, he lost his job and was then evicted by his landlord for being late on rent. Now, he still takes the A train every day, not to go to work, but to find a quieter, warmer haven away from the street. He said, "I still budget like I used to. The only difference is that there's no longer a line for salary, and you're not the only one." Last year alone, New York spent over $4 billion on emergency housing programs, an unprecedented figure. But that same year, the number of mental health-related cases among the homeless population increased by 32%. There's no shortage of budget. There's no lack of effort. But perhaps there was a lack of patience, a lack of manpower, and a lack of a place that truly felt like home. A private investor was once found to be holding over 400 vacant apartments in Brooklyn, just waiting for market prices to rise. Meanwhile, 400 people sleep under the same block every night. If a city can sustain the global financial industry, but cannot protect someone who once worked in it, the question isn't why, but what are we prioritizing? Did you ever live in New York in the 80s? The Giuliani years? The Bloomberg years? So, do you recognize that this is still the city you once loved and believed in? And if New York is the city that never sleeps, then San Francisco is where technology has reached the heavens and humanity has hit rock bottom. If you ever believed New York was the center of the world, see what the Futures Center is doing in San Francisco. We'll be right there. San Francisco, where technology reaches the sky, where AI can talk like a human, self-driving cars navigate the streets, and every billion-dollar idea starts in a coffee shop. But a few hundred steps away from the center, you'll see something no chatbot can describe. The deepest depths of indifference in the age of superintelligence. This city spends over $1.2 billion annually on programs to address homelessness. But the homeless population here continues to grow steadily. 18% each year, despite all efforts. A former software engineer for a startup funded by the very big players in Silicon Valley. He used to live in Soma, drink $8 cold brew, and have friends who were founders and angel investors. But a layoff, a serious illness without insurance. And 3 months later, he had to sell off his belongings bit by bit, eventually leaving the apartment to live in the truck that used to be his camper. He said, eyes glued to the screen, "I'm still coding, still applying, still updating GitHub every week. The only difference is, I shower in the public gym." This city has the most advanced AI products on the planet. Yet, it can't solve the problem. How to find a place to sleep for the person who created it. San Francisco can map genes, train language models with hundreds of billions of parameters, but doesn't know what to do with the woman sleeping next to the electric car charging station. They say, Technology is meant to serve humanity. But if you stand at the corner of Mission and 16th at 3 a.m., you'll wonder, what kind of people are being served here? San Francisco, the city of glass walls. Beautiful, cold, dazzling. But behind every wall, what is there? A conference about the future, a silent office, and someone is sleeping on the other side of the line. If this is the city that represents the future of humanity, then what part of humanity is being left behind? When the heart of technology no longer beats for humanity, who will speak up? You've made it this far, not for the numbers, but for the people. If you've ever seen someone sleeping on the street and walked away, try leaving a note today. One comment, a story. This is not a video about policy. This is a video about the question we have seen. So, will we still turn a blind eye? 10 cities, 10 mirrors reflecting an America that is both magnificent and showing cracks. We don't tell stories to accuse, nor do we tell them to complain. And to remind us that beneath the towering structures, beside the words, "we the people," there are still real people, living, sleeping, and truly hoping every night. You might have walked past them before. Perhaps you yourself were once a part of that story. And if not yet, you still have the right to choose your perspective. Because indifference doesn't start with policy, but with the first glance we turn away from. What have you witnessed in your own city? What did you think when you saw someone sleeping on the street, in the middle of America? Please, leave your thoughts, stories, or simply a message in the comments section. We read everything. If you want to continue following true stories, social slices that not many people want to look at, press the subscribe button. It helps us continue to tell the story, on behalf of those who no longer have the opportunity to speak. The information in this video is compiled from public reports, government data sources, and voluntary witnesses. The goal is to reflect the current state of American cities through a humanistic and analytical lens, not to be absolutely definitive, nor to represent the official views of any organization. All real-life images have been processed according to ethical standards for educational purposes and community sharing. Thank you for watching until the end. See you in the next videos.